Hi everyone, my name is Tom Harari and I'm the SEO Manager here at iAcquire. This week's Cliff Notes Tuesdays, we're going to continue with the book Inbound Marketing by the guys at HubSpot. We're going into Chapter 6, Getting Found on Google. The authors kind of start this chapter with a brief introduction about the difference between paid and organic, or paid versus free listings in Google. And really on Google search results page you have your organic listings, which is straight down the middle, and then your paid listings, which tend to be on the right-hand column. Sometimes you'll have a box on top of the organic listings with 1, 2, or 3 paid listings. And the way that paid works, as opposed to organic, and we'll get into that in a bit, is that it's almost like a real-time auction. If you're interested in appearing instantaneously for any given keyword, you would offer a bid for that keyword, and in essence you would pay Google per click every time somebody clicks on that specific keyword. And the more competitive a keyword, the more people that are interested in bidding for that keyword, the higher that cost is going to be. So it really does work like a real-time auction. The authors cite a study that says that 75% of people will click on organic listings when they go to Google, and 25% will click on the paid listings. There's certainly other studies that have been done that are out there. This is not the definitive be-all, end-all of studies. I've seen others. Definitely check them out if that's something you're interested in. But this is the one that the authors have cited. And then they get into how Google works for the organic listings. And they really just kind of keep it high level. In a nutshell, the way that Google and most search engines work is that they look to crawl the internet, find as many pages as possible, and then store all those pages in their index or a catalog of all the pages on the internet. Then when a user performs a search, they look to find the best match from their index that would match that given search query. The way that they find the best match has to do with two things, really. It's relevancy and authority. So how relevant is that specific page to the search query performed, and how authoritative is that website in comparison to all the other pages that are also relevant. And the way that they measure authority is basically called PageRank. This is unique to Google. It's named after Larry Page, who is one of the co-founders of Google, of course. And the way that PageRank works is it looks to kind of measure the quantity and quality of inbound links to any given website and then give it a PageRank score, excuse me. So really, if you're thinking about it in terms of quantity and quality, which is more important? Are you really looking to have many pages linking to you that are of a low authoritative score and not very reputable, or do you want just a couple of links from a few very authoritative websites? I think the authors of the book and many people would say to go for authority websites, but certainly doesn't help to have many authoritative websites linking to you as well. How do you get these links? Well, simply, you'll hear this a lot coming up in the book, create remarkable content. It's a recurring theme in this book. So they kind of break it down into 3 steps in terms of how to be found on Google. The first step would be to pick the right keywords. And the way you want to go about thinking about picking the right keywords would be to think about keywords that are relevant to your business. If you're an attorney in Boston, Massachusetts that deals with tax litigation, perhaps Boston tax attorney might be a keyword that would be of interest to you. Certainly you'd be relevant for that search keyword if someone were to find you through it. Then they talk about search volume. So is there going to be enough people searching that given keyword that if you were to rank on the first page, you could expect to see decent traffic numbers? If the term Boston tax lawyer has more searches than Boston tax attorney, and then perhaps you might want to go with the tax lawyer versus tax attorney. And then the last part is really the difficulty, or how competitive that keyword is. And this is really more of an art than a science. You want to think about, yes, these keywords are relevant to me and they have a lot of search volume, many people search them every month. But if they're very difficult, it's going to take time until you start appearing on page 1 for those keywords. That might be a lost opportunity. You might want to go for keywords that are a bit less difficult to compete for and then start getting some traffic in that way. So when thinking about these keywords, should you think about it in terms of which keywords describe your business, in terms of how you think you would describe your business? Probably not. I would say definitely think about how your target audience would describe your business, and certainly the authors would agree with that. The next part of it is really the on-page factors. There's really no reason to not get these correct, unless of course you have a really difficult CMS that you're managing. But for the most part, you want to make sure that, okay, you have the keywords, you understand which keywords are going to be the right ones for you to target. You want to make sure that those keywords are found in your titles, which certainly is probably the most important factor for on-page SEO. And these can be found in the top of the browser bar and also the clickable link in the Google search results page. You want to make sure that you have descriptions that are optimized towards your keywords. They're not going to necessarily help you with ranking, but they can certainly help with the click-through rate from Google organic searches. So you want to make sure that the copy is strong copy that's targeted to your users and has a strong call to action. Next is the URLs. So you want to make sure that the URLs have keywords in the URLs that are relevant to the page topic. You certainly don't want URLs that have a bunch of weird letters and numbers and question marks and equal signs, and it will be difficult for a human to figure out what that page is about. Certainly it's going to be difficult for a search engine to figure out what the page is about. So go ahead and try to get pretty URLs with keywords in them. Then the authors go into domain names, and there's been a lot of discussion about whether you should choose a domain name around your target keyword. The authors would say to actually go ahead with a domain name that's the same name as your business, and that makes sense. It's probably a better longer term strategy. But they do say that if you're starting a business from scratch and you're going to be heavily dependent on Google search traffic, then you might want to think about naming your business after the keyword .com, whatever that may be. Certainly be prepared to pay a premium. There's not many good keyword.com domains available anymore. And then moving on, obviously, to establish relevance, you want to make sure that the content on your page is targeted to the keywords, that speaks to the topic of the page, the overall theme, and that you're also organizing that content in a way that makes sense through different heading tags. So you want to make sure that you have at least one H1 followed by a couple of H2s or H3s. And this is really just to break up the content on the page so that a user quickly scanning through your page can understand what the different sections are about. And the same goes for search engines. And then they also talk about images. So images are very useful. People like visual things, but to kind of balance that need for design and visuals, it's also important to not have a page that's solely image-based. You want to also make sure that you have text on the page. If you do have images though, make sure that you use what's called an alt attribute, which is a piece of descriptor that lets search engines know what that image is about. Search engines can't understand what an image is about unless you tell them what it is about, and it's a good opportunity to put your keywords in the image. Moving on, they go into off-page, and primarily the number one most important thing for off-page would be links. Again, we talked about this before, getting quality links to your site and as many as possible, certainly the way to do it. They, again, reiterate that remarkable content is by far the best way to do this, especially when you're thinking long-term how to get links. The other method to get links would be to request links. The authors aren't really huge on this method. They think that by and large it's a waste of time, especially if you're trying to speed up the process by using templated forms. Most people will probably never open that email, definitely not respond to you. But if you are creating remarkable content, you think it might be of use to a specific website's reader base, certainly go ahead and contact them, reach out to them, request the link. Don't make it so obvious that you're requesting a link. Just let them know that you have this great content that you took the time to put together and that you think it might be of use to that website's reader base. So then moving forward is kind of how do you value a link from any given page? How do you determine if a link is going to be worth the effort to get? And the way they break it down is first starting off by the authority of the page. Is the page authoritative? Is it a reputable source? And then is the link a no-follow? What this basically means is the webmaster attaching a piece of code to that link that says, yes, I'm linking out to this website, but no, I'm not giving it any editorial value. This happens a lot in comment fields where a webmaster doesn't necessarily know who's dropping in links in the comment forms. By default, those comments are typically no-follow, so they're not really going to help your SEO at all. And then the number of links. So the way PageRank works is that it looks to distribute that PageRank on any given page evenly across every single link on a page. If a page is linking out to 200 or 300 different places on the web, each of those needs to have that PageRank distributed evenly. So getting a link from that page is going to be worth a lot less as opposed to if you were 1 out of 5 people that were getting a link from any specific page. And then the anchor text. The anchor text is basically the words that are chosen as the link. So instead of getting a link that says, yourlawfirm.com, the link would say Boston Tax Lawyer, and those words would be the clickable link to your website. This is really a strong relevancy factor because that link is basically telling search engines what this page that's being linked to is about before they even get there. They also get into a bit of black hat techniques. These haven't really been used in many years, but they do mention some of these techniques. They're really not worth your effort. They go into things like hidden text, cloaking, so that you're serving one thing for search engines and another thing for users, doorway pages, so that they get a given page to rank well, and then when a user clicks it, they're redirected to a different page. Just lots of terrible stuff that's kind of done to manipulate Google, to trick Google. Not a good long-term strategy, especially since these are really things that are not going to work well as soon as a human reviewer comes to review your site. So you definitely want to stay with them if your business is focused on long-term growth. They also mentioned, I didn't have any room to put it on the board here, but they mentioned a small business in Pennsylvania called DIY Shutters. Their website is DIYshutters.com. Definitely check them out. And they've seen a ton of success from organic search. They've been investing in SEO since the get-go. Their primary keyword is shutters. While they're making headway in ranking for that term, in the meantime, they're getting lots of traffic for variations of that term. So exterior shutters, interior shutters, and these are really driving business and leads to their website. The to-dos for next week are going to be, first start off with a free tool from HubSpot. You can find it at website.grader.com. This has been mentioned before, but check that tool out. Pop in your business's URL and take a look at the overall health of your site. See which things you're doing correctly, which things you need improvements on, and just kind of get an overall snapshot of where your website is SEO-wise. And start to figure out also which are the most important pages on your website. Match those pages up with the keywords that you've identified are important for your business, and then go ahead and optimize those pages. At the bare minimum, optimize the titles of those pages so that they include the relevant keywords for your business. That's all for this week, and we'll see you next week with another edition of Cliff Notes Tuesdays. Bye-bye.